to the media houses. I just making sure you're paying attention. Everyone there is ready. So that was just a joke start. So when it starts, I want a resounding good afternoon. Ready? Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to round number 2 of the Intersecondary School Debating Competition. Today is day number 2 of our round number 2, and we are here at the University of the West Indies Open Campus Auditorium. I am Firelander, and I have the pleasure of being your moderator for this afternoon's debate. So before we move any further, we want to invite God's presence within our midst. And I should have done this before I stepped up here, but I know she's not going to tell me no because she loves me plenty. So I would like to invite Miss Andrea Christian to please lead us in a word of prayer. While I invite the rest of the room to stand up as we invite God's presence here this afternoon.
Heavenly Father, we give you thanks and praise for today. We thank you for all of the persons who are here. We thank you for the organizers of the debate and for the 2 schools who today will compete against each other. We thank you, Lord, for just everything in terms of all of the people who have come to listen as well and the schools that have come to support their 2 debaters. And so, Lord, just let all go well according to your plan. For we ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you very much. And I honestly would not have been able to do a better job than that. Thank you so much, Miss Christian. So this afternoon, as indicated, we are here for round number 2, and we will be seeing who will be moving on to the next round of debate for the 2026 edition of the Intersecondary Schools Debating Competition. This afternoon, 2 schools will be debating on the following topic: nutrition education is more effective than food restrictions in preventing NCDs among teenagers. This afternoon, we have the defending champions of the Intersecondary School Debating Competition, the Dominica Grammar School, in the house. Let's make them feel welcome. And we also have the Castle Bruce Secondary School in the house this afternoon. Before I introduce you to the debaters, this edition of the Intersecondary School Debating Competition would not be possible without the kind compliments of very, very generous sponsors. We want to say a big thank you to the Josephine Gabriel and Company Limited, Quenchi and the Twapito Water, Dominica Social Security, Nagico Insurances, Central Cooperative Credit Union, KFC, the National Bank of Dominica, Dominic, Lindomat, the Insurance Company of the West Indies, Dominica News Online, Maysil, Pascal and Grace Foundation, Freeman Consulting LLC, Emo News, Dr. Live Peter Peltier, Yakima Coffee, Elaine Renee Buncombe, Charms, Eats and Treats, and of course our partners at Dominica State College and the UWI Global Campus. Let's say a big thank you to all our sponsors. Let's give them a round of applause. And Of course, this afternoon, as indicated, we have the Dominica Grammar School and the Casabru Secondary School who will be presenting on the topic, which I will repeat shortly. But before I do so, I'd like to welcome our debaters to the front so that it's not about me, it's not about you, it's about them. So let's welcome from the Dominica Grammar School proposing on the topic, Michaela Benjamin, who is a 15-year-old fourth-form student, and she loves mathematics. Let's give her a round of applause. Second speaker from the Dominica Grammar School is Miss Lydia Charles, who is also a 15-year-old fourth-form student, and she loves chemistry. And we move on to the opposing school. We have the Casabru Secondary School. We have first speaker, Mr. Michael Lawrence, who is a 15-year-old fourth-form student. And interesting enough, I asked each student to tell me something interesting about themselves. And Michael's interesting thing is that he's an overthinker. We welcome Michael to the front. And our second speaker, Denisha Cornelius, is a 15-year-old fourth-form student as well. And she loves science and wants to be an anesthesiologist. The two schools will be debating on the moot. Nutrition education is more effective than food restrictions in preventing NCDs among teenagers. This afternoon, we have here a panel of judges who will decide who moves on to the next round. For once, I'm happy I'm not a judge and I'm in this seat because I know for sure both schools are going to present an amazing debate. Our chief judge this afternoon is Mrs. Nicole Laville. Nicole Laville serves as the Director of Engineering Services at the Dominica Hospitals Authority. She's a qualified engineer and the President of Dominica's Association of Professional Engineers. She is actively involved in community, youth, and STEM education initiatives. The STEM Girls Club in the Mao constituency is one of her recent initiatives. Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome Chief Judge Nicole Laville. Nicole is ably assisted by Miss Jaya Pending. Jaya Pending is a singer, former news reporter, and a debater. She holds her associate's degree from the Dominica State College in English and was the valedictorian of her graduating class in 2019. She has captured several debate titles, including Windward Islands Debating Competition Champion in 2018. We welcome Miss Pending. And our third and final judge is Dr. Barry Kazimi. Dr. Barry Kazimi serves as a program officer at the UWI Global Campus Dominica. He holds a Doctor of Educational Leadership in Higher Education. He is also very involved in sports administration and has held various positions in national sporting organizations. Our third and final judge is Dr. Barry Kazimi. Our judges will be using the following criteria to judge this afternoon's debate. The prepared presentation will be judged on a total of 100 points per judge, which will allow for a possible total of 300 points per speaker. We have soundness of points, 35 points, logical development, 20 points, audibility and clarity, 15 points, posture and personality, 15 points, command of material, 15 points. And in terms of the rules of the debate, each debater, the leader of the proposition, shall make his or her case for a maximum of 10 minutes. The leader of the opposition shall then make his case for a maximum of 10 minutes. The second speaker of the proposition shall make her case for a maximum of 7 minutes, and the second speaker of the opposition shall then make her case for a maximum of 7 minutes. After which, we will then invite the audience to practice their best quiet self for 5 minutes while the prepare a rebuttal, after which the proposition shall have a maximum of 3 minutes for rebuttal, and then the opposition shall have a maximum of 3 minutes for their rebuttal. At the end of each speaker's allotted time, the speaker will vacate the lectern. The timekeeper this afternoon is Mr. Rashad. Wave so we can see you. Thank you. And shall give a warning signal 1 minute before the expiration of the speaker's allotted time. Rashad, can you show them the times that you have, please, so that each speaker can see? So you see time is up and 1 minute left. Okay? Before the expiration of the speaker's allotted time, and again at the end of the allotted time. So you'll be getting 2 notices, one at 1 minute left and one at the end of your time. Following the rebuttals, the adjudicators will be escorted to a secure venue for their deliberations. Deliberations should last no longer than 15 minutes. Not me, that's here. The moderator may lead an open discussion while the adjudicators are deliberating. So we'll have a quick discussion only about the topic, but not about the debate itself. The discussion must be about the moot point, and we will continue from there. Upon the return of the officials to the debate venue, the chief judge will each give a brief, constructive critique of the debater's performance, after which the results will be revealed by myself. Are we ready for debate this afternoon? So before we begin, I just want to remind you of the moot. Nutrition education is more effective than food restrictions in preventing NCDs among teenagers. To those of you in the room, just a quick notice. Once the debate has commenced, we ask that you please do not exit or enter the room while a debater is at the lectern, as we do not want them to be distracted. Debaters, please await a signal from myself to confirm when you may be able to begin. Is that clear? Are we ready? Proposing, you ready? Opposing, you ready? Let's have a good debate. Let's have a good debate. So we now begin with our first speaker for the proposing from the Dominica Grammar School, Ms. Michaela Benjamin, debating on the topic, nutrition education is more effective than food restrictions in preventing NCDs among teenagers. We welcome Michaela Benjamin.
May I have some assistance with the mic, please? 1, 2. Okay. Yes. Organizers of the Inter-Secondary School Debate Competition, honorable judges, moderator, worthy opponents, and to you, members of the audience, good afternoon. In Dominica, across the Caribbean, and in many other parts of the world, we are not losing people to war or outbreaks. We are losing them quietly to diabetes, heart disease, and cancer. Almost every one of us knows a parent, grandparent, aunt, or neighbor living with diabetes, heart disease, or the effects of a stroke. These are non-communicable diseases, NCDs, and according to the World Health Organization 2022, they account for 71% of deaths worldwide. But here's the uncomfortable truth. These diseases don't start in adulthood. They start now. They start with the eating habits we formed as teenagers, often without knowing what we are truly doing to our own bodies. So, the real question before this house today is not whether unhealthy food should exist. It is whether we educate young people to make better food choices, or simply ban foods and hope for the best. I stand firmly in support of the motion nutrition education is far more effective than food restrictions in preventing NTDs. Before I proceed, judges, allow me to clarify a few key terms. Nutrition education is a structured teaching that equips individuals with both knowledge and skills to make informed food choices. Contento, 2011. Food restrictions are policies that ban or limit access to certain foods, particularly in school settings. Mozaffarian et al., 2018. NTDs are chronic illnesses such as diabetes, heart disease, and cancer that are strongly linked to diet. WHO 2022. Teenagers are individuals aged 13 to 19, an age where lifelong habits are formed. The topic, therefore, suggests that teaching teenagers about food is a better way to prevent NTDs rather than keeping them away from it. I wholeheartedly agree. I will present these three main arguments. 1. Education fixes the real problem. 2. Education creates lasting change. And 3. Education builds autonomy. Point 1. Education fixes the real problem. Judges, let's get to the root cause here. Poor eating habits formed during adolescence are a major risk factor for NTDs, and these habits are often continued into adulthood. But why do teenagers eat so poorly? Is it because junk food exists? Or is it because they don't understand nutrition? The CDC tells us a harsh truth. Less than 30% of teenagers understand basic nutrition. Fewer than 25% can identify proper portion sizes. And only 18% can read nutrition labels. CDC 2021. In other words, judges, teenagers are making daily food decisions with almost no tools to decide wisely. Food restrictions do nothing to fix this. You can ban every unhealthy item at school, remove every soda machine, and turn the canteen into a vegetable palace. But teenagers will graduate unable to balance a meal, read a food label, and understand the impact on their future health. Education, however, tackles the problem at its source. The Cooking Matters for Teens program showed that after practical nutrition education, 67% of teens ate more vegetables, 70% improved cooking skills, and 81% felt confident making healthy food choices on a budget. Share Our Strength 2015. No bans, no punishment, just knowledge and skills. Judges, this moot is about preventing NTDs. If we want to succeed, we need to tackle ignorance, not just hide temptation. Point 2. Education creates lasting change. Judges, here's a critical question here. What happens when school ends? When teenagers graduate? When no one is watching? Dudley et al. 2015 reviewed 81 school-based programs and found that nutrition education led to lasting improvement even after programs ended. Students kept making healthier choices because they understood why. Food restrictions? Dudley found that their effects largely disappeared once enforcement stopped. 2015. Evans et al. 2012 showed that teenagers receiving education increased fruit and vegetable intake from 3% to 99% servings daily and maintained it 6 months later. Real, lasting change. Judges, food bans control lunch. Education, however, controls a lifetime. Since NCDs developed over decades, not lunch breaks, this mood clearly favors nutrition education. And point 3, education builds autonomy. Now, judges, let's talk psychology. Restrictions don't just fail, they make things worse. Brahim and Brahim, 1981, called it psychological reactance. When people feel their freedom is threatened, they fight back. Teenagers are basically reactants in human form. Fisher and Birch, 1999, found that children restricted from foods didn't just want them more. They overate when finally allowed access, lost self-control, and developed disordered eating patterns. And here's an even simpler example. Johnson et al., 2007. One group of children were told, don't eat the red food. Another group had no restrictions. The restricted group ate more red food. Judges, a simple don't caused overconsumption. Love et al., 2014, followed teenagers for 5 years and found that those exposed to restrictions had higher obesity rates, more binge eating, and worse diets, all key risk factors for NTDs, compared to those who received education. Education, in contrast, builds confidence, knowledge, and autonomous motivation. Murmi et al., 2017, found that teenagers chose healthy foods because they understood the benefits, not because someone forced them. Judges, you can't force teenagers into health. You can educate them into preventing NTDs. Honorable judges, the evidence is overwhelming. Nutrition education creates lasting habits that reduce NTD risk. Restrictions create temporary compliance that disappears after graduation. Education builds understanding and autonomy. Restrictions trigger rebellion, binge eating, and increased NTD risk. Food restrictions are walls that crumble the moment teenagers step outside them. Nutrition education is a foundation that supports healthy choices for life. Judges, I wish I could declare this debate over, for I know I've already won you over to my side of the motion. But my colleague shall now join me in further convincing you why nutrition education, not food restrictions, is the most effective way to prevent NTDs among teenagers. I thank you.
Thank you, Michaela Benjamin, speaker number 1 for the Dominica Grammar School, and Michaela spoke for a total of 9 minutes and 55 seconds. We now move on to the first speaker of the Castlebrew Secondary School, Mr. Michael Lawrence, and he has a total of 10 minutes. Michael?
Testing. Moderator, honorable judges, invited guests, students, ladies and gentlemen, my fellow colleague, my most worthy opponent, a pleasant good afternoon to you. To begin our argument, I would like to share one fact which I am sure will put in perspective for you the seriousness of the situation. According to the World Health Organization, WHO, and I quote, approximately 15,048 people were living with diabetes in Dominica in 2024, out of a total population of around 66,500. This represents nearly 23% of the population. It continues further that I quote, "The estimated annual economic burden of diabetes alone is between 16.4 and 27.4 million US dollars," end quote. This, honorable judges, is just one of the most striking recent statistics coming directly from the government of Dominica, according to the WHO. And this is simply one of the myriads of reasons why my colleague and I stand firmly in opposition to the motion before us. Nutrition education is more effective than food restrictions in preventing non-communicable diseases, NCDs, in teenagers. Let me be clear from the outset. Honorable judges, we do not oppose education, because after all, knowledge is power. However, to suggest that education alone is more effective than restrictions is a dangerous oversimplification of a crisis that is literally killing our country and the region on a whole. We are not just debating a theory, we are debating the future of Caribbean youth. Before we delve into the matter at hand, let us examine some key terms. According to a definition cited in a peer-reviewed article from the National Institutes of Health, PubMed Central, PMC, nutrition education is defined as any combination of educational strategies accompanied by environmental supports designed to facilitate voluntary adoption of food choices and other food and nutrition-related behaviors conducive to health and well-being, end quote. The Oxford Learner's Dictionary defined effective as producing the result that is wanted or intended successful in achieving a goal. The USDA National Agricultural Library defines food restrictions as the limitation of nutrient intake, food intake, or food choices by humans in experimental and non-experimental situations. And lastly, based on authoritative sources such as the World Health Organization, WHO, and the U.S. National Library of Medicine, MESH, non-communicable diseases, NCDs, also known as chronic diseases, are not passed from person to person. They are typically infectious in region of long duration and generally slow progression. The four main types of cardiovascular diseases, example heart attacks and strokes, cancers, chronic respiratory diseases, example chronic obstructive pulmonary disease and asthma, and diabetes. These diseases are driven by a combination of genetic, physiological, environmental, and behavioral factors. The primary modifiable risk factor includes tobacco use, unhealthy diet, physical inactivity, and the harmful use of alcohol. Moderator, judges, our argument today is very simple. Education tells the teen what to do, but only restrictions change the environment to make sure they can do it. We cannot rely solely on willpower when the system, I am sure you will agree, is working against our health. To make sure you see reason, I will deliberate on these 3 points. Number one, the urgency of the Caribbean NCD crisis demands action, not just lessons. Number two, the toxic food environment overrides individual choice. And 3, scientific evidence shows education changes knowledge, not bodies. My colleague will further expound on the points that policy restrictions work. The one-size-fits-all assumption of education ignores socio-economic reality, and restrictions and education are a team, but restrictions are the captain. Point 1, the urgency of the Caribbean NCD crisis demands action, not just lessons. Judges, in a country and the Caribbean by extension, we are past the point where a classroom lesson is enough. This is a regional emergency. In Jamaica alone, 1 in 3 children between 10 and 19 was reported to be hypertensive in 2017. And obesity rates have doubled in boys over the last decade, according to an article from The Gleaner. In addition, in the article titled The Role of Youth in the Fight Against Overweight and Obesity by Pierre Cook Jr., a youth advocate from the Healthy Caribbean Coalition, highlights that 1 in 3 children in the region is living with obesity. These are not just numbers, ladies and gentlemen. They are our friends, our classmates. The above figures represent clear evidence that education does not ensure behavior will change. We live in a culture of instant gratification and feel-good mentality. Therefore, we need action, and that action is restriction. Judges, think of yourself as a teen, even as an adult. How many things that you have been taught are bad for you, but you ignore them totally? You know the dangers, but because of ease, comfort, pleasure, accessibility, etc., you throw all the caution to the wind. Opponents, when a house is on fire, do you simply hand out pamphlets on fire safety? No, you call the fire brigade. Food restrictions are our fire brigade, providing an immediate line of defense while education provides the long-term prevention strategy. Point 2, the toxic food environment overrides individual choice. Judges, we cannot educate our way out of a system designed to make us sick. This is counterproductive. Our schools should be safe havens, but they have become dumping grounds for unhealthy and ultra-processed foods. You don't believe me? I challenge you to visit any school on Island today which operates a school canteen. Look at their menu options and tell me the number of healthy foods available to the students for purchase. I invite you to take a look at the number of them who come to school with snacks from home. Again, tell me the number of healthy snacks you see prepared by parents of these students. In fact, as a secondary school student myself, I can tell you that most students purchase snack at school for that matter, and the choices are not healthy. The food environment is shaped by profit-driven priorities, flooding our canteens with excessive sugar, sodium, and trans fats. Ladies and gentlemen, in this environment, asking a teenager to just say no to cheap, tasty, and accessible junk food is unfair and unrealistic. Food restrictions, such as banning sugary drinks and regulating what canteens can sell, change the default option. As the Scaling Up Nutrition movement notes, weak regulations on the marketing of junk food mean our environment are failing to protect our health. Across the world, highly processed foods, high in sugar, salt, and fat, are cheap and easily accessible, while nutritious diets are becoming less affordable and further out of reach for vulnerable communities. These foods are readily available through KFC, Perky's Pizza, Crispies, and IROC subs. We see the number of teenagers at these places on the weekend. With few safe spaces for children and young people to be active, and the weak regulations on marketing of junk food, our environments are failing to protect our health. This is according to the Scaling Up Nutrition, an article written by Pierre Cook Jr., ladies and gentlemen. We have been taught that according to our laws here in Dominica, there are so many forms of education geared towards teenagers specifically regarding the dangers of having sex at a young age. They are educated at school through health and family life classes, in science classes, on the television, just to name a few. Yet this is not a deterrent. People, especially teenagers, will do what they want to, regardless of being taught the dangers. Opponents, restrictions fix the environment. Education just asks us to fight against it. Point 3. Scientific evidence shows education changes knowledge, not bodies. Judges, we respect science, and science is on our side. A major 2025 systematic review and meta-analysis published in the Journal of Adolescent Health looks specifically at educational interventions in low and middle income countries. While it found that education successfully improved students' knowledge about healthy foods, it failed to change the physical measures that matter most. The changes in body mass index, BMI, and waist circumference, key indicators of NCD risk, were not statistically significant. The study concluded that achieving sustained behavior change requires targeted strategies beyond education alone. Judges, teenagers are quite aware that foods such as delicious fried chicken, scrumptious bakes, sweet biscuits, a refreshing soda, etc. are bad for them. But if that's the only option, they will eat it. Restrictions bridge the gap between knowing and doing. Distinguished judges, as I wind down my argument, I am confident by now that these points, which I laid out before you, would have convinced you to a large degree. Food restrictions are more effective than nutritious education in preventing non-communicable diseases, NCDs, in teenagers. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael Lawrence, speaker number 1 from the Castle Secondary School. And Michael spoke for a total of 10 minutes and 45 seconds. We now move on swiftly to our second speaker from the Dominica Grammar School, Miss Lydia Charles. And she will continue on the moot that nutrition education is more effective than food restrictions in preventing NCDs among teenagers. We welcome Lydia Charles.
Organizers of the Inter-Secondary School Debate Competition, honorable judges, moderator, worthy opponents, and members of the audience, good afternoon. My colleague has already dismantled the opposition's case by proving that nutrition education creates lasting behavior change, avoids psychological rebellion, and prepares teenagers for real-life decision-making that will either protect them from or expose them to NCDs like diabetes, heart disease, and cancer. I'm here to strengthen that case with 3 additional arguments. Education promotes fairness. Education builds health literacy in a world full of misinformation. Education creates change beyond the school walls. Point 1. Education promotes equity. Restrictions punish poverty. Judges, let's be brutally honest. Most secondary schools do not provide healthy snack. Students rely on what they bring from home or what they can buy at school. And what's usually sold at school? Fried snacks, pastries, and sugary drinks. The very foods that cause NCDs. Now here's the critical question. Who relies on those snacks the most? It's not the student with the full lunch kit. It's not the student. It's the student who had no breakfast. It's the student whose parents left early for work. It's the student whose only option is what costs $2 or $3 at school. Judges, when we ban these foods without providing education or alternatives, we're not creating health policy. We're creating inequality. Ronto and colleagues found in 2016 that restrictive food policies often disadvantage food-insecure students, forcing them to choose between being hungry or being healthy. Judges, that's not health promotion. That's punishing poverty, and it does nothing to prevent the NCDs that will hit the same disadvantaged students hardest in adulthood. We ban fried snacks. Okay, great. Now what does that hungry student do? Go hungry all day or buy the same snacks across the street and eat them like a criminal? Of course, that's what they'll do. Buy it and hide to eat it. But the difference is, education works with students' realities. Brown and Herman showed in 2005 that low-income teenagers in nutrition education programs improved their diets just as much or even more than wealthier peers. Education teaches students how to make better choices within what is actually available, like drinking water instead of soda, balancing snacks, choosing smaller portions, real practical skills for teenagers. Judges, you can't ban poverty, but you can teach students how to eat smart within it, and that education is what prevents NCDs, regardless of their socio-economic status. So on this moot, the answer is absolutely yes. A policy that works only for the privileged students isn't effective at preventing NCDs across the entire teenage population. Point 2. Education builds health literacy in a world full of misinformation. Judges, Teenagers today are drowning in food messages, TikTok diets, Instagram influencers selling detox teas that are basically expensive laxatives, protein snacks with more sugar than candy bars, foods labeled natural as if arsenic isn't also natural. The real question is, do we want teenagers who blindly follow viral trends? No. We want teenagers who can think critically. According to NotBeam's 2008 research, health literacy isn't just knowing vegetables are good. It's the ability to access, understand, and use health information to make good decisions. Food restrictions don't teach that. They just remove options and hope students don't notice. Education teaches students to ask the right questions. Is this actually healthy or just marketed that way? How much sugar is really in this sports drink? What does this nutrition label actually mean? Judges, you can't ban misinformation from the internet, but you can teach students to see through it. And that critical thinking is what prevents NCDs in a world full of misleading health claims. So on this note, education wins because it prepares students for the real information environment where they'll make dietary decisions that will determine their NCD risk for life. Finally, education creates change beyond the school walls. Judges, here's something beautiful about nutrition education. It doesn't stop at the school gate. It spreads. Story et al. 2009 found that teenagers who received nutrition education didn't just change their own habits. They influenced what their families bought and cooked at home. One educated teen often changed an entire household's eating patterns. And judges, when you change a family's dietary patterns, you're not just preventing NCDs in one teenager. You're potentially preventing them across multiple generations. Think about that power. You teach one teenager, and suddenly their younger siblings are eating better, their parents are reading labels, and their grandmother is trying new recipes. Huntsberg and colleague reported in 2015 that over 60% of parents changed household food items because of what their children learned in school. More than half of families are influenced by their teenagers' education. Food restrictions, they end at the school fence. They control 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., Monday through Friday, within school property. No ripple effects, no family change. Restrictions control cafeterias. Education changes families and prevents NCDs across entire households. Isn't it obvious that education is the better choice? Honorable judges, today I've shown you that nutrition education succeeds precisely where restrictions fail in preventing NCDs. I've proved that nutrition education works because restrictions keep saying, "Pani problem," like magic will happen, while education actually fixes the problem. I thank you.
Thank you, Lydia Charles of the Dominica Grammar School. And Lydia spoke for a total of 7 minutes and 20 seconds. And I forgot to mention before she commenced, the second speaker has a total of 7 minutes to speak. So we move on to speaker number 2 of the Castle Secondary School, Denisha Cornelius. Also, you have 7 minutes. Let's make her feel welcome.
Moderators, judges, invited guests, students, ladies and gentlemen, my fellow colleague, my most worthy opponents, a pleasant good day to all. My proficient colleague has already set the groundwork in presenting to you some undeniable reasons why we are of the view that food restrictions, not nutrition education, is more effective in preventing non-communicable diseases, NCDs, in teenagers. I will focus on the following points. Policy restrictions work. The one-size-fits-all assumption of education ignores socio-economic reality. And finally, restrictions and education are a team, but restrictions are the captain. Judges, ladies and gentlemen, I am not sure if you're familiar with the saying, good fences make good neighbors. How does this relate, you may ask? This proverb suggests that clear boundaries and restriction fences are more effective at maintaining peace and order than relying on people's inheritance, goodwill, or neighborly education. Point 1, policy restrictions work. We have proof in the region. Judges, we are not proposing hypotheticals, we are proposing proven solutions. And we have proof right here in the Caribbean that restrictions are more effective than just education. We have seen food restrictions work. Barbados introduced a tax on sugar sweetened beverages, and Jamaica has restricted sugary drinks in schools. Barbados introduced a tax on sugar sweetened beverages to curb excessive intake and found health promotion. Jamaica restricted sugary drinks in schools to protect children where they learn. CARICOM leaders endorsed a regional goal to have healed childhood obesity by 2030. According to an article on the role of youth in the fight against overweight and obesity by Pierre Cook Jr., and here in Dominica, ladies and gentlemen, in 2024, Parliament implemented a raise in excess tax on sweetened beverages by $1 per liter. This increase was aimed at mitigating NCDs in the country. It took effect on September 1st, 2024. The increase was recorded at 500%. These are indeed indicators that with restrictions, there is a way to curb this crisis. These are fiscal and regulatory restrictions that curb excessive intake. The World Health Organization recommends best buys specifically to reduce the burdens of NCDs. In a study conducted in sub-Saharan Africa, it was noted, as stated in Sage Journals, I quote, adolescents and young people aged 10 to 24 experience critical development periods of physical, cognitive, behavioral, and social growth, which influence their lifelong health trajectory, end quote. It goes further to state that, quote, adolescents and youth who particularly susceptible to undernutrition and diet-related obesity compared to other groups face increased risk of NCDs. A major public health challenge that accounts for 70% of global deaths annually. In addition, between 1980 and 2015, the prevalence of overweight and obesity in adolescents increased in SSA, affecting 7.6% of boys and 15.4% of girls. One driver of this increase in obesity is the increase of consumption of sugar-sweetened beverages, a trend that was pronounced in countries in SSA, end quote. Ladies and gentlemen, when we make the healthy choice, the easy choice, or in some cases the only choice, consumption patterns change. Restrictions have a population-wide effect that reaches every student, regardless whether they were paying attention in HFLE, science, physical education class that day or not. Point 2, the one-size-fits-all assumption of education ignores socio-economic reality. Education often assumes that if a student knows better, they can convince their parents to buy better. This ignores the economic realities facing many Caribbean families. Judges, DOM 767 reports that 39% of Dominica's population live below the national poverty threshold. It further cites that 10.4% live below the international poverty line. And this information is as recent as the 6th of November 2025. Over 70% of Jamaicans struggle with insufficient access to safe, healthy, and nutritious foods. According to an article in Journal of Adolescent Health dated May 2025. Opponents. Though a country or the region or other entities such as WHO may spend millions of dollars on nutritional education, unless there are things in place restricting the access of unhealthy foods, the problem will persist. Due to the high rate of poverty, many families cannot afford nutritious, healthy foods. Ladies and gentlemen, how can we educate children into affording a salad when the family budget only stretches to the cheaper, calorie-dense processed options? Food restrictions, particularly when implemented through school feeding programs, ensure that the meal a child receives at school, which might be their main meal of the day, is nutritious. Judges, integrated school policies ensure that even the most vulnerable students get the protection they need. According to an article in the Frontiers Public Health, I quote, school feeding programs in Latin America are among the best established, with some of the largest scale coverage in the world. National school meal programs in Latin America and in the Caribbean benefit over 80.3 million children and adolescents in the region, end quote. Point 3, restrictions and education are a team, but restrictions are the captain. Judges, our opponents might argue that we need both, and we agree. But the motion asks, which is better? We wholeheartedly argue that restrictions are the foundation which education is built. However, isn't it hypocritical to teach a child about healthy eating while simultaneously sell them chips and soda in the canteen? The message of the lesson is contradicted by the reality of the recess line. Food restrictions align the environment with the curriculum. They provide the structure that allows good habits to form. Similarly, education tells you choose water. Restrictions make sure water is the only thing available in the canteen. In conclusion, we cannot educate teenagers to swim in a sea of sugar and expect them not to drown. Judges, Dominica and the region as a whole is facing a tsunami of NCDs. And our best defense is not just a chalkboard. It is policy, it is regulation, it is restriction. We must restrict the availability of harmful foods in our school to protect our health today, while we use education to build a healthier generation for tomorrow. Therefore, my worthy opponents, food restriction, not education, is more effective in preventing NCDs in teenagers. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Denisha. And Denisha spoke for a total of 7 minutes and 54 seconds. So this completes the first round or first section of our debate this afternoon, the prepared presentation. At this time, I will now ask my assistant timekeeper, Rashad, to set a timer for 5 minutes, during which time I invite the audience to please try your best to remain in complete silence. And I forgot to say it at the beginning of the debate, but just in case you may have forgotten, to please place your phones on silent so that we do not have any distractions during this 5-minute period. Okay, so our time is up. Before we move on to the rebuttal section of segment rather of this afternoon's debate, just want to remind you of our kind sponsors who have supported the 2026 edition of the Intersecondary Schools Debating Competition. We have Josephine Gabriel and Company Limited, Quenchi and Twapito, agents of Quenchi and Twapito Water, the Dominica Social Security, Nagico Insurances, Central Cooperative Credit Union, KFC, the National Bank of Dominica, Domlec, Lindomart, Insurance Company of the West Indies, the Dominica News Online, Maysil Pascal and Grace Foundation, Freeman Consulting LLC, MO News, Dr. Live Peltier, Yakima Coffee, Elaine Renee Buncombe, Charms, Eats and Treats, and of course our partners, the Dominica State College and UWI Global Campus. Ladies and gentlemen, this is round number 2, and the winners of this afternoon debate will be moving on to the semi-finals of the 2026 edition of the Intersecondary Schools Debating Competition, which will be in about 1 month. So we wish whichever school who is moving forward all the best, and we know for sure that they will be representing their schools very well. Just a reminder that each school will have a total, or a maximum rather, of 3 minutes for the rebuttal, and they will be judged on that, on the following criteria. The criteria are team coordination, 10 points, general analysis of debate, 14 points, recall of points, 10 points, ability to refute the points, 20 points, and spontaneity, 6 points, for a total possible score of 60 points per judge. Okay? So, ladies and gentlemen, we are ready for our rebuttals. Are we ready? Awesome. So we move on, and we will welcome to the podium our first speaker for the proposing side of the Dominica Grammar School, Miss Michaela Benjamin, who will have 3 minutes to present her rebuttal on the moot nutrition education is more effective than food restrictions in preventing NCDs among teenagers. Michaela?
Okay. Organizers of the Intersecondary School Debate Competition, honorable judges, moderator, worthy opponents, and to you, members of the audience, good afternoon again. My opponent's points can be described as a lovely house of cards. Beautiful, yet so easy to crumble. Judges, it worries me that they truly believe in good conscience that they can pick restrictions over education. For instance, their first point, urgency of the Caribbean of NCD crisis deserves action, not education. Judges, in the midst of all this action, education slows you down. Education holds your hand and tells you, this is what you should do, and it shows you exactly what to do. Restrictions may limit you from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., but what happens outside these walls? Students will go and buy these same sugary drinks, these same unhealthy snacks outside at the bus stop while they're waiting. These restrictions aren't there waiting for them. These restrictions are still in school, while education will follow them. Their second point, toxic food environments override individual choices. Education shows you exactly what to do, even as they made the point that teenagers will not choose now. What happens when they grow up, when they're adults, when they have their own families? There are no restrictions to restrict them now. Education is here. Education is their hero, and education has been with them from since they were in school. This education will follow them. And the third point, policy restrictions work. Even as my colleague mentioned earlier, that these same restrictions that worked in other countries, even as my colleague showed earlier, that these policies that worked earlier don't work anymore. She showcased that even though they may work for a while, what happens when they go home? Will the same restrictions be there of them? Education helps the family, not just the individual. Education will help their siblings, their parents, and their grandmother to make additional healthy recipes. Judges, finally, I conclude that my opponent's points can be described as trying to catch water with a strainer. Pointless. Case closed. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Michaela Benjamin of the Dominica Grammar School. And Michaela spoke for a total of 3 minutes and 2 seconds. We move on to the rebuttal from the opposing school, the Castlebooth Secondary School, and we welcome to the podium Mr. Michael Lawrence, reminding those of you who may have just tuned in that the moot this afternoon is nutrition education is more effective than food restrictions in preventing NCDs among teenagers. Micah, you have 3 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon again. We value the arguments presented by our opponents, but I must direct you to our reality. Teens do not care, but restrictions make them care. According to an article by Rowand et al. Entitled Health Education and Its Roles in the Prevention and Management of Non-Communicable Diseases, health education plays a central role in NCD prevention and control by reducing key risk factors such as poor diet, inactivity, tobacco, and alcohol use, while simultaneously promoting positive behavior change and improving health literacy. May I remind you, judges, the motion says more effective. However, education limited by barriers such as low literacy, cultural attitudes, a lack of resources, and insufficient health system. My worthy opponents, are there systems in place in Dominica to combat the cultural attitudes of our teenagers? Is education enough to fight that? Further, my opponents may have sounded convincing making their arguments, but let us ask ourselves, how effective will education be at challenging the marketing ploys and business tactics of fast food companies? How effective will nutritional education be in fighting against the $12 crunchy deals and carnival bucket deals promotions? Or the flash your DSC college ID and get 10 or 15% off at Perky's Pizza? Even if we know how and what to cook, even if programs are integrated into our curriculum, even if we know the impact of food choices on health, even if we know the dangers of eating unhealthy foods, we will not experience success unless the captain leads the team. And that captain, I remind you, is restrictions. Ladies and gentlemen, I leave you with this comment by Tan et al., who I think summed it up best. Awareness of healthy eating may not always translate into healthy feeding practices. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lawrence of the Castlebooth Secondary School. And he spoke for 2 minutes and 22 seconds. We thank each of the schools this afternoon, the proposing school, the Dominica Grammar School, and the opposing school, the Casabru Secondary School, debating on the topic, nutrition education is more effective than food restrictions in preventing NCDs among teenagers. Let's give both schools a round of applause. At this time, I now invite our judges to retire to an undisclosed location. You have 15 minutes to come back with the results. And in that time, we will engage ourselves in a very interesting discussion related to the topic and not on the debate. But before we do so, of course, we want to say a special good afternoon to the viewers who are tuned in online, of course, on DBS Radio and on MO News. I want to say a special good afternoon to each and every one of you tuned in to the 2026 edition of the Intersecondary Schools Debate Competition. This is round number 2. The winners of this afternoon's debate will be moving on to the semifinals. But before we commence the discussion, guys, you may vacate your seats and join back your schools. I'll call you back shortly. Let's give them a round of applause, guys. So the mood this afternoon was a very interesting one in my opinion. And full disclosure, I am a nurse by profession. And the topic this afternoon on nutrition education as well as that of NCDs is something that I hold near and dear to me personally. And it's something I believe that as young people we need to take very, very, very close, or rather pay very close attention to, as it is something that is important to our locality. And to guide the discussion, I have a few questions and I want to see if we have some answers from those of you in the audience to see where our brains are at. The first one is from the debate, or even before this afternoon's debate, what is an NCD? Who knows? I think we only have one mic, so I'm going to be walking around and guiding the discussion. What's an NCD? Now, I'm a nurse by profession, but I'm a teacher at heart. So volunteer or be volunteered? Okay. So right here, what's an NCD, sir?
Non-communicable disease. A non-communicable disease.
So a non-communicable disease. So when we say non-communicable, what do we mean by that? Yes, there?
It doesn't spread through contact.
Correct. So it doesn't spread through contact. So non-communicable diseases, as is indicated, are diseases that you cannot catch by sitting down next to the person. So COVID-19 was a communicable disease. You could catch it if someone coughs into the air and you inhale those spores, you catch it. But hypertension, diabetes, cancer, these things, you can sit down next to the person and you cannot catch it. But let's take it into something very close. What do we think are the most common NCDs affecting young people today? Yes, young man at the back. Cancer. Yes. What else? Diabetes, correct. Hypertension. She said hypertension. Heart disease. There's another one. It's as if, say it with your chest. That's right. So obesity is the one that is most visible, right? So you see it from the time they walk up, you see it. Type 2 diabetes is appearing earlier than before. So there are two types of diabetes. You have type 1 and type 2. Type 1 is something that tends to happen when you are younger and you eventually just falls. It's what we call an incidental finding most times. You just one day find out you have diabetes. Type 2 diabetes eventually is or discovered later on in life, but we are seeing it being discovered younger and younger. Hypertension, pressure, as we colloquially call it, is in fact something that is being diagnosed even in even younger adults. And another one that we are not talking about, but we should be talking about, and some studies are now suggesting, is that mental health conditions are also linked to poor nutrition patterns as well. So what do we mean by nutrition education? And I see someone in the house who's smiling at because we're having the discussion, because she is a nutritionist as well. So I'll say good afternoon to you, Mrs. Coralie Thomas. But what is nutrition education? Take your time, don't rush all at once. Yes, you look like you have the answer boiling and you want to say it. Yes. Thank you for volunteering.
So, nutrition education is when you teach people about the risk factors that come with what they eat and the benefits that as well that come with what they eat.
Thank you very much. So, nutrition education simply tells you that, hey, food is good to eat, but everything in moderation, or even water. And I want us to take this into consideration. Even drinking too much water can be bad for you, right? So this thing we talk about, drink plenty water, drink plenty water. Even drinking too much water can be bad for you. And a friend of mine messaged me, so are you having a debate about NCDs and you have a big KFC thing right behind you? And I said to them, no, but you need to also understand that even KFC in moderation can be, and I wouldn't say considered healthy, but it would not be bad for your health. So we need to take that into consideration. And if we have the right level of nutritional education being shared, we would know that. So yes, you can have your KFC, ladies and gentlemen, right? Right, Coralie? No. So do we think that education actually changes behavior? By a show of hands. Do we think that education actually changes behavior? We think so. Why do you say yes? Please stand and answer. Please stand and answer. Yes.
Education changes behavior. I do not fully agree. I believe it depends. Because not everyone is the same.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone adheres to what they are being taught.
Okay.
So once they are taught to listen and understand, they consider,
Okay.
what is being taught and execute it, practice it.
Yeah. Like they say on their family feud. Good answer, good answer. Anybody else? So anyone from the Casper Secondary here? This young lady at the back, you look like you want to answer me. Like you have something boiling. Yes, you. No? No, you sure? Okay. But yes, the fact remains that education can improve awareness and decision making. But as is being said, that even with education, because we saw what happened with COVID-19, education was everywhere. And there are still persons who chose to think that, hey, this is not something I want to follow. This is a fake disease. This is fake news. And we saw what happened as a result of that. So we want to ensure that, and something that's very important, and as she was rightly saying, that while education increases capacity, so whether you know about this or not, your environment influences your action. So the necessary restrictions might, once they are put in place, they would be able to guide you accordingly. And so why do we think that food restrictions might be effective? When I ask the question, why do we think? So we spoke about education. We say it's good and it's necessary. But food restrictions as well, we're saying, why do we think it would be effective in curbing our NCDs? Come on, let's not rush all at once. Any answer here? Do we understand what food restrictions are? Yeah. So it basically is saying that we have some types of food and we decide and we say, hey, you cannot use this or you shouldn't use this. And restrictions may come in different ways. It might be placing complete bans or increased price for certain things. So the restrictions may look different in various localities. But I saw a hand here. So why do you think restrictions might be effective?
It offers less options, so people are more likely to go with what is available.
Fair enough. Good answer. Good answer. So if it's not there, they will not do it, right? So if it's not available and you will defer to what you have to, because one thing that's necessary in life, one of our main necessities is to eat. So if we just cut off and say, okay, this is not available at all, you will have to revert to what is in fact available. So that's what she's saying is the reason why food restrictions will be effective. Thank you for that answer. You're next.
In my opinion, it doesn't really matter about the food restrictions, because today there are so many things out there that even though you put the food restrictions, teenagers are still going to find a way to create what they want or what they need.
Thank you. And my grandmother would say, young people like own way, right? So no matter how much you tell them don't do it, is now they're going to do it, right? So we're going to continue with another question. So thank you so much, ladies. But I got the answers I was looking for. But basically, policies are supposed to shape behavior. However, sometimes, even if you can put the most policies in place, the teachers in the house are probably thinking I'm preaching to their choir. You can say, don't do this 1,000,001 times in your classroom, but sometimes children, or teenagers rather, will decide, okay, that rule is the rule I'm going to break today. And as a result, that may be the issue. And it then leads to this next question that I have, that and some studies refer to it as red button syndrome. Basically, is don't push that red button. If you tell me don't push it, I'm going to want to push it. Do we think that restrictions create rebellion? Okay. So I'll leave the debaters for last on this one, because you'll had enough time to study this. But do we think that restrictions create rebellion? And this is not only related to the moods, just restrictions in general. Why? Zadie, why? Exactly. Now, and even recently, there have been a number of psychological studies that have been put into place, especially when we're talking about education relating to health. And I want us to understand this, that the communication tends to be changing. Because before we used to see smoking kills, or this is bad for you, it can kill you. And before, people would say, okay, well, have you ever seen those videos or those advertisements that I would say, I used to smoke 6 packs a day, this happened to me, and I used to eat hamburgers, and I got overweight. So now the psychology behind it was basically saying that if I do all of this, if you were doing all of this, you didn't die, why can't I do it? So basically, it's all about how the restrictions are framed. So basically, education is in fact power. So let person understand that if you do it this way, this is what can happen, as opposed to if you do it that way, this is what can happen to you. Now, the big question of the afternoon, right? Do we think... Oh, where is it? I come in here just now. Wait, I just see the question, anyway. Do we think that teenagers are capable of making responsible food decisions? All who say yes, raise your hand. Who says no? Okay, I'm going to pick on you. Why do you say no? And us young people in the room, well, the teenagers, I'm not a teenager, but the teenagers listening to you. Huh? So tell us why you think they are incapable of making healthy food choices.
I wouldn't say completely incapable of making those choices, but they're not really motivated to make those good choices out there, because if when you just step onto the street, you know, when the children are together, then they go out to their friends, they head to the fast food areas, they go and they buy whatever that's cheap, and we know that fast food is very cheap compared to the healthier food. You know, when you go buy KFC, you maybe pull out, well, back in my day, it was $10 for a kid's meal, right? No, today it might be a little bit more. But what I'm saying is that the cheaper foods are always the faster foods. So most likely they'll gravitate towards that because daddy and mommy give me that little bit of money and I just go in with my friends to have fun there. And you know it's more popular as well. The healthy food areas are not as popular. So I feel like they're more gravitating towards the unhealthy foods.
Okay, fair. So we say that we can over here, right? Now we have another debate starting, right? He gave his remarks. It's your turn to rebut. Do we think that teenagers are capable to make healthy food choices? Okay, sure.
Okay, so once they are taught the benefits, like the pros and the cons of fast food, the unhealthy snacks, then they will know, okay, I do not want this, so I will not do this in order to get this. You understand?
And also, let's be serious. When some people watch themselves in the mirror, well, us Dominicans, you know us already. When you see somebody on the road and they big, Puche, look at the lady. No, we wouldn't want that to happen to us. So no, nobody wants to date a chubby hobby. No offense, but just saying, all these days, like, people, they watch how they eat. Because if you watch different people now these days, they have different jobs they might want to do. For example, modeling. So some people, I can't say malnutrition, but like, might want to eat the right amount. But anyways, yeah.
Okay. So basically, we are saying that, or you are saying that let me see if I can summate your point here. Basically, you are saying that because of body image, that you believe that young people are very concerned about how they look, and as a result, that it is directly linked to them being capable of making healthy choices. That's what you're trying to say. Okay. Woo. But yes, in essence, you have a very strong point, because body positivity is something that is very big. Those of us who have TikTok accounts, anyone has followed or seen videos by this young lady, Samira? Right. So this young lady on TikTok, she has this big thing about fat phobia. And she talks about how people are, or how companies are fat phobic based on how they put out messaging about, it can be something that's very simple. So some persons feel it she being extra. Some persons feel it as she's bringing some very genuine points. But at the end of the day, body positivity and how you look at yourself is something that's very important and has a very direct correlation to on how you are influenced in terms of your actions. So that is something that's a very strong point that you made there in your very, very special way, my dear. So do we think, and that's another question, and that's something that came up somewhat during my research when I was preparing for this, is, do you think that affordability is a bigger issue than education when it comes to food? So I'm gonna ask it again. Do we think that affordability is a bigger issue than education when it comes to making healthy food choices? Come on, yeah, so it's yes or no. Let me hear why. Yes. Yes. I'm sorry, I was a bit distracted while you were speaking. So if you could just say it one last time. Okay. But in essence, and it's a fact, and this is something that's not only for young people, but even for well, teenagers, I should say, for those of us who are working persons as well, the healthier food options tend to be a bit more costly. And as a result, it can put you as a disadvantage, especially when you, especially as a young person, you're dependent on your parents to give you money to buy food, and sometimes it can be difficult for you to make healthier food options, and that's why I'm saying healthier food options, and I'm being very cautious about my words, because even with that, budgeting well and looking at your options, the same $12, you can go and buy the meal by the unnamed place. You can get a smoothie by another place and find other ways in which you can spend your money wisely, but do so by identifying healthier food options. But this hereby concludes our discussion on the moot that is nutrition education is more effective than food restrictions in preventing NCDs among teenagers. So before we move on, and because the judges have returned to present and have presented me with the results, but before I do deliver the results, I'd like to invite our speakers to return to the front, to the fore. We have Miss Michaela Benjamin of the Dominica Grammar School and Miss Lydia Charles. They were representing the proposing side of this argument. And we have Mr. Michael Lawrence and Mr. Nisha Cornelius of the Castle Bruce Secondary School. Before I give you the results this afternoon, I would like to invite our Chief Judge, Mrs. Nicole Laville, to deliver a few remarks to the debaters. Mrs. Laville.
So good afternoon to representatives of the Dominica State College, the Dominica State College Debating and Literary Society, Ms. Christian, who is the coordinator of the inter-secondary school debates, my fellow judges, students, especially the students from the Castle Bruce Secondary School and the Dominica Grammar School. Good afternoon. First of all, let's just do one more round of applause for our debaters. So I heard the age is 15-year-olds, and coming here, you had to do all of this research, practice, orate, and speak to your fellow peers, your fellow classmates, and us, the judges, and deliver your points. And that has to be commended. The efforts that you put in, the work that you put in, the bravery that you put in to come here and deliver, that has to be commended and highly commended. So we applaud you all for that. So I will speak now in terms of the debate that my fellow judges and myself judged. And the moot was nutrition education is more effective than food restrictions in preventing NCDs among teenagers. So in terms of the delivery, the debate, the materials, we noticed that they were well researched. We noted references with data from WHO, The data included local and regional examples, so that means that those of us here in Dominica, we could identify with some of the examples that were given, so that is noteworthy. And we also noticed that the definitions, the terms were very well defined and came from very credible sources. So the terms such as NCDs, nutrition education, restrictions, all of these things were well defined, and teenagers, of course, well defined. In terms of improvements for your debates, we would like you all to read less reading, and more connecting with your audience, okay? You should be confident in your points. You should have ownership of your material because you are proposing. This is what you believe, and you want to convince me that this is the truth, all right? So you need to make eye contact and not be so into your script, okay? In terms of the rebuttal, my fellow judges and I, to be honest, we weren't too happy with the rebuttals, but for improvements, we hope that in future you will not do not introduce new points in your rebuttal, okay? That is something that all debating judges, I'm sure your teachers told you that, but yet we still notice that there were new points that were introduced in the rebuttal. And also in terms, even the judges and myself, we were in the deliberations and we rebutted both arguments. We could come up with holes, we could poke holes in both sides. So I think that was something, if just a little more thought, a little more listening, I'm sure you could have had some more material for the rebuttal, okay? One more note, something that was lacking in the delivery, in the content, is that the mood says that nutrition education is more effective than food restrictions in preventing NCDs among teenagers. So we heard a lot of data about NCDs worldwide among the general population, but we didn't hear anything specific to teenagers. How prevalent are NCDs in teenagers? And that is the whole point of this debate. How is nutrition education versus restrictions affecting NCDs in teenagers? Is it reducing it? One or the other is going to reduce it? What are the effects in teenagers? So that was something that we felt was missing in the content of the debates. But overall, very good effort, all right? The judges, we were impressed, we listened, and we were happy with the debate, all right, overall. So I will leave it to Mr. Moderator to give the results of today.
Thank you very much. So, I have to make sure I watch this closely because I don't want any Steve Harvey moments this afternoon. So, again, I want to echo the sentiments of our Chief Judge and congratulate both of our schools this afternoon, and would like to wish the school which is going forward all the best. Moving on to the semi-finals of the 2026 Inter-Secondary School Debate Competition. I will first begin by letting you know who the judges have decided was the best speaker this afternoon. The best speaker comes from, drumroll please, the Dominica Grammar School. Our second speaker, Lydia Charles. Our proposition received a total of 658 points based on the judges, and the opposition received a total of 597 points, which therefore means our winners this afternoon are the Dominica Grammar School. So at this point in time, I now invite coordinator of the Intersecondary School Debate Competition, Miss Trudy Christian, to first deliver the certificates to the school, to the prizes to these two students who are not moving on to the next round. So Mr. Michael Lawrence of please step forward from Castleberry Secondary School. Let's give Mike a round of applause. Always amazing to see young men participating in competitions such as this. And of course, Miss Denisha Cornelius, our second speaker. Our best speaker this afternoon was Miss Lydia Charles. Please step forward. And Lydia, please stay there so you can receive your So Lydia will receive a medal, as well as Michaela Benjamin from the Dominica Grammar School. So Michaela and Lydia, if you could remain, because you will now publicly, after? Okay. So you may take your seats. Thank you. So we now invite our Chief Judge to receive a token of appreciation, Mrs. Nicole Laville. As well as Miss Jaya Pending. Dr. Barry Kazimi. Thank you very much. So now just reminding you guys that the intersecondary school debate competition, this was only round number 2, and we have the Dominica Grammar School moving on to the semifinals. At this point in time, we will now invite a representative from the Dominica Grammar School to dip the topic that you'll be debating at the semifinals. Oh yes. Elas. The moderator. The moderator, Mr. Fai.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you, debaters. Congratulations to the Dominica Grammar School. And of course, congratulations as well to the Castle Secondary School. This was a hard-fought debate. I was very, very impressed. And just to let everybody know, yesterday's debates saw the Wesley High School and the Isaiah Thomas Secondary School making it to the semifinals. Now, the Grammar School will be joining them. And then we have one more debate, Orion Academy versus the St. Martin Secondary School. That will happen next week, and then we'll find out who is the fourth school in the semis. But Dominica Grammar School, you get to choose your topic now for the next round. And just to let everybody know, the next round is sponsored by Dominica Social Security, and so all topics for the semifinals are revolving around Dominica Social Security. So that is just the information I'll give before we dip. Who's dipping? Okay. Okay. And you can read it.
The Dominica Social Security system should introduce unemployment benefits, even if it requires restructuring existing benefits and/or contributing rates. Opposing team.
Okay, so the grammar school will be opposing that the Dominica Social Security should introduce unemployment benefits. Right, so we look forward to the semifinals, March 26th, and we will be on again to see who will make it all the way through to the finals of this year's competition. But thank you so much to everyone who showed up today, to the media for your coverage, judges, moderators, students. Until March, we will be on again. And the students, the winners and the runners-up, we need some photos at the end as well. So please don't run away, all right? Thank you and have a good afternoon.